Hello and welcome to this COMP3218 game design and development video from the University of Southampton. Today we're going to be looking at some more of our students' first courseworks. My name is Tom Blunt, I am one of the lecturers on the course, and I am joined today by...
Johan Daniel Marino, one of the demonstrators.
Brilliant. Johan, can you tell us a little bit about what we asked the students to do for this coursework?
Yeah, of course. So we asked them to create a game with a tutorial in it and a clear core dynamic.
Excellent. Okay, let's jump right into our first game. Okay, and this is DieAndRun. So nice little title screen, even got a credits page, which is really nice to see. Let's jump right in with start game. Tutorial was the problem. I mean, I do like puns, and I'm guessing that's telling us that the controls are W, A, S, and D. I'm not sure what D does, so I guess it's just the WAS side of things. We have a yellow 0 and a red 40 that's rapidly going down. Cool. Jump. Ooh. Okay, so I'm guessing the countdown is how long I've got to do the level. I have no idea what the yellow one is. Bit of a shame that the UI sort of covers up where I am. If I press this X, is that going to just close the UI, or is that going to take me back to the... Okay, that's like a reset button. And the 1 has gone up, so that's how many resets I've used, I guess. But the timer hasn't restarted. Oh, right, so it's just the number of times I've died, not necessarily reset. I've left a corpse there. Okay, so we've got time taken, deaths... Okay, so we failed the level. Alright, let's try that again then.
How do the controls feel?
They feel a little bit floaty, but overall not too bad. I'm definitely able to manage it. Okay, so that's interesting. It looked like there was a second route there, but it doesn't lead to the end. Okay, so we've got a star for time taken, we've got a star for deaths, and we've got a star for coins collected. I don't think I collected any coins, but maybe there are no coins on this level? I don't know. Have a look at the next one. Misplaced key. Okay, so there's a key. Is this the same... This is the same level structure as the last one, so I guess we need the key to open that. Still getting a star for coins collected, and not having collected... Aha! That looks like a coin. Level 3 shiny trinkets, okay. Oh, I'm just stuck. Unity occasionally does this with platforms. Okay, so we still don't have the key for that. Is that a key behind? That is a key behind the UI. Yeah. Okay, so we've got to go back this way, which means we're going to need to do this jump. There we go. Okay. Alright, so I think we're getting a feel for the game as a whole, so let's dive into having a look at the mark scheme. That seems a bit of an awkward place to put a coin.
I think it's on purpose for you, so you die and see that there is a body.
Okay, and I can stand on top of the body.
I suppose. Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be important. Oh, they do disappear after a little while.
Oh yeah.
Is the key still going to be up here? Anyway, so we're going to have a look at the mark scheme. We're looking at based on a number of different categories. No, okay, there was no way of going. No reason for going up there, that just cost me time.
Let's start with...
So overall, to start with, we're going to be looking at quality. So the overall sort of presentation, information design, and how fun it is to play as a game.
So let's start with information design. So that's about, I guess, the UI and how the information around the game is designed.
Yeah, so what information have we got? We've obviously got the level name, we've got a death count, we've got a time count.
Although they aren't necessarily evident at the start, like you don't know what the yellow...
Yeah, and there's a couple of things that maybe aren't being shown to us. Like, for example,
Yeah, the coin counter.
Yeah,
feels like.
we are being rewarded based on the number of targets, but we only find those out at the end of the level. Okay, so I'm mashing WAS and D, and nothing is happening. But the level is called Where's WASD, so I'm assuming they've just changed the controls around. So I'm just going to start randomly pressing button. Ooh, I moved there. So that's K is moving me that way, H is moving me that way. Is you going to make me jump? Yes. So
And one thing that I like the key. If you get the key, it doesn't.
yeah,
There's no. Yeah, you can't. You can forget that you got the key because it isn't shown anywhere.
yeah, there's
From
no
what I see.
like it'd be nice if maybe there was like a little key silhouette or something if we had to collect the key and then that filled in as we got it. Okay, so overall, there's definitely been some information design at play here. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
A couple of bits of the information design literally get in the way of play though. For example, the UI on screen, you actually have to sort of jump by or spot things behind, which is a bit of a shame. There's a couple of bits that aren't shown that could be, but overall, I would say like most of the key information is shown. So we've got. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, why are actually, now that I say that, why are they showing us sort of deaths like across such a big part of the screen, but not coins? So we've got like time taken and deaths are the two bits of information we're shown during the level, which is because we're scored on them, but not coins collected.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be kind of nice if we had like the target number here as well, so it was like 0 out of 0 or 49 out of some way of showing what we were actually aiming for. Because if you're going to take up this much of the actual screen real estate with this, it would be kind of useful to have a little bit more there. So overall, I would say most of the key information is shown here, which I think would put them at sort of around a satisfactory.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okie doke. Let's move on to the next bit. So graphics and audio. So we're not marking sort of specifically the graphics that they've used here. They're free to use sort of external asset packs. It's more how they've sort of used everything together and whether it works well. And overall, so the key looks maybe a little bit out of place, but other than that, everything looks quite nice. Even things like the menu and the UI screen all feels that sort of very colourful, very bright, very sort of platformery, very sort of in keeping with the overall style of the game. So overall, I would say the graphics are consistent, effective, and even appealing.
And even when you die, the small. Your dead body is another color, and you can clearly see it's.
Yeah, there's some sort of nice effects where it fades out and things like that. So there's a couple of little bits and pieces that maybe sort of don't usually mesh as well, like the I think like the saw blade, it just sort of is moving back and forth rather than actually spinning and things like that. There's a couple of little touches they could have done to really bump that up.
Yeah, and maybe also the animation of the player.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's animating.
But overall, I think this probably hits. I don't know, between a good and an excellent. Would you say then?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's almost at excellent, just a few minor things. But the next one is audio. So you have to tell me here because I cannot hear.
There is some music, there is some sound effects. The background audio is kind of nice. It's sort of relatively lively. It's I would call it sort of platformery. I was going to say something that might be nice is maybe like a little bit of emphasis as the clock is counting down, because I totally didn't realise I was running out of time there. But there is like a little sound effect when we jump. Is there one when we die or collect a coin? So there's one when we collect a coin, and there's like a little sort of death sound as well. So yeah, a couple of nice little bits of feedback there. with the audio.
So would you say it's complementary and appealing effects in music?
You know what, I would, yes. So I think that probably hits excellent. Again, there's like little bits and pieces that they could have done to improve it even further, but I think what they've got is actually like very effectively used. So that would put them at about an excellent.
Yeah, pretty much. And I guess we can go on to the next one, which is part of meaningful play now. And we can start with the mechanics we have in the game.
Yeah, so what mechanics have we got? We've got sort of standard platforming, movement and jumping. We've got sort of traps and things like that, like the spikes, the saw blade. That's interesting, the saw blade seems to have stopped. And I can't actually see... Ooh, am I going this way? No, not for this one. We've got picking up a key to remove a door, we've got extra collectibles and things like that. We've got the timer, we've got stuff tracking our deaths and coins collected.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like a reasonable set of mechanics. I'm not sure it reaches, necessarily it's reaching towards like a wide set of mechanics, but I think perhaps sort of between a good and an excellent again for this, I think.
Yeah, feels about right, so almost there, but like what could have they added? Something small.
Actually, you know what? Given that they're sort of, giving you stars and things like that, and tracking the various different bits and pieces.
Oh yeah.
I think you know what? It probably does just enough to reach the excellent side of things. It's not quite necessarily the complex and wide set of, or the wide set of complex mechanics, but it's a relatively, they've got a relatively wide set of mechanics here, like a number of different bits and pieces. So keys, coins, traps, platforming. I think it pulls together quite nicely. Plus the actually sort of tracking, the coins and stars and all of that. Controls. This is interesting because one of the levels deliberately makes the controls unintuitive. Which feels like I can see why they might have done it, because they felt it was like an interesting sort of twist to throw onto a level, but it feels like not the right fit for that kind of game, which I think we can sort of talk about a bit more later when it comes to things like level design. But overall, the basic controls are relatively smooth. There's something about the jump that doesn't feel quite right. I think it's to do with some sort of the acceleration or the momentum or something. And there's a weird sort of, again, I don't know if this is intentional, but there seems to be a weird sort of delay when we hit one of the coins, and it feels like that might be just so that I can hit a coin and then not fall into the spikes immediately below it. Here we go again. But overall, I would say reasonable set of smooth, usable controls.
So reasonable set. Which puts it at around a good.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, changing the control scheme around for the last level is also probably not intuitive, but I think overall there's just a little bit of stickiness or floatiness or something in it that maybe stops it getting to excellent as well. But overall, it's very, very playable.
And do we have bugs? Yeah, there was. So the only bug I can think of was the saw just stopping and not moving. Yeah,
there's a couple of bits where we will occasionally get caught on some geometry, like the edge of a platform or something like that.
Yeah, that's really,
which is relatively common in sort of some platforms made in Unity.
Yeah,
but overall, I would say this is a good game. Is reasonably complex. There are infrequent minor bugs, maybe even between a good and an excellent, because it's such a minor bug that is so common in these types of games.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, I think between a good and excellent again.
Yep, sounds good. What? Yeah, and I guess now that leads us to the next part of the criteria about the brief itself, and we can start with the level design criteria. And how does I guess maybe we can do pacing or goals, risks, and rewards first.
Yeah, let's start with goals, risks, and rewards. So,
Yeah.
I mean, first off, I'll say it's an interesting idea that they have like the same overall structure of every level, but then they add sort of new features to it each time. So you know the overall layout, but the position of the key or the coins or the traps changes slightly each time. Which is an
exactly.
interesting idea. In terms of goals, it's relatively clearly set up that we have to keep moving right, as we often do in platformers. It's not always clear what the goal is to deal with this gate. Sometimes it's a key, sometimes it's, I don't know, like this level is called the shy gate, so does that mean it opens if we're not looking at it? This bit I haven't been able to quite figure out, so I think this bit's not entirely clear. And because the key is sort of in a different place every time, it can make it sort of a bit not obvious. So for example, the first couple of times we see this path in the levels, there's no point to go up there because the key is either there is no key or it's down here somewhere. Speaking of which, I've lost the key. Is it up there?
Wait, I think you have to...
Or do I have to die in order to open the gate?
Maybe, because of the level name. Is it open?
Yeah, see, that's really not clear. Like, so when I read the level, I thought I had to, I had to do something that would kill myself in order to get the key, but I don't. I just have to kill myself for seemingly no reason, so that's, I would say, a little bit unclear.
Yeah, and like they could have fixed that just by making sure that you die next to the gate and you see the gate go down exactly when you die.
Yeah, or even just
connects with the title.
Or even just put the key, the thing that we've been taught that opens the gate, put that over a spike pit, and then you still get both. Yeah. It remains consistent, and you get to have that sort of extra little thing that you're trying to encourage the player to do. Risks and rewards. So we do have some element of like risk versus reward here, I guess. So some of the coins are placed over spike traps, so it's a case of do we want to go for, do we want to maximize our coin score or maximize our life score? Again, difficult to sort of know ahead of time whether we should even be risking it for that, because we don't know what the targets are that we're aiming for.
Yeah.
But there's definitely been some thought put into how can we get that sort of risk-reward thing. So, do I just try and complete the level in the fastest possible time and ignore everything else? Or do I try and also get all of the coins? So if I, for example, avoid all of these coins, and I've got to go and get the key still.
Yeah, then you supposedly don't get...
Yeah, so I don't get any stars for coins collected, but I do get stars for being... So there is some risk-reward there. It feels... It's interesting. It feels like there is... In fact, I tell you what, there's a coherent set of goals, risks, and rewards, but they're not entirely clear, which puts them basically bang on a satisfactory.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Yeah.
So we can definitely see they've put some thought into it, but because of the things we've just talked about, they're not always 100% clear. So here, this is the one. So this opens if we're not looking at it.
And then.
But then, as soon as we look at it, like once it's gone down once. Oh no, it does come back. Oh, and there is actually like a little audio ticking noise while it's down as well.
That's a nice...
That's interesting. Yeah, which shows up... But see, it doesn't really seem to sort of behave consistently. Sometimes it comes back, sometimes it doesn't, and now I'm sort of stuck. Anyway. Yeah, so
Yeah,
this is
I
what I'm
guess-
saying about it. It's not always clear what the goal is that we should be doing to either open that gate or to be gathering these things. So there's definitely a set of them. They're not clear. Satisfactory. Moving on to pacing.
Yep. Let's see. So it does get harder from what I can see, with more spikes and more platforming,
Yeah,
which does give some tension.
absolutely. I think one of the things that maybe lets them down a little bit, that we spoke about a bit already, is rather than sort of building mechanics on top of each other, which they do to an extent, a lot of the sort of way they try and increase that pacing and tension is to change already existing mechanics to do something new and unexpected. So, for example, making the gate open in different ways every time, or having
The keys, different set of.
And I feel like, I was going to say, what am I trying to say? So yeah, overall, there is definitely an increase in pacing because every level there are more traps and more mechanics and things like this. But this, yeah, it's, if anything,
It's not good here. And
if anything, changing the control scheme doesn't make things sort of harder. It just makes things, more frustrating because I've got to figure stuff out. And the actual level itself is a bit easier. So once I've just pressed every button on my keyboard, then the level is actually relatively easy. So it feels like they don't have, that sort of dramatic final peak where we've learned all of the mechanics and sort of have to put our skills into play. It's just, a little bit frustrating, that one, unfortunately. But overall, so we got tension clearly rises over time. Yeah, we definitely have that because
it gets harder.
Yeah, the overall
the level
gets
design.
harder. I'm just trying to think. Are these showing our targets or what we actually got? Because again, that's not super clear here either. Did I take 21 seconds or was I aiming for 21 seconds? Because I think these targets get, harder over the course of the game as well. So that's another source of tension that's rising, which is good. It's just.
But you don't know it because they don't show you the time needed, or
tension rises over time in a coherent pattern. So even, I think, within the levels we do have some element of that as well. So we have, it's not sort of constant, what's the word? Constantly trying to ramp up the tension. It will have things where there's like a section and then we can sort of sit here, look at the next section and things like that. So I think we actually do have some element of like a consistent pattern within the level space and within the game as a whole. So I think they probably do still get good for the overall tension thing, but it's not necessarily balanced as well as it could be.
maybe between satisfactory and good.
Yeah, I think you may be right there actually. We did talk about a number of things that sort of do disrupt the pattern a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess that leads us to the main tutorial bit.
So yeah, this is the thing. They have, or rather they've certainly tried to avoid doing a lot of text within the tutorial and let the player sort of figure out a lot of the mechanics. Partly themselves, partly through the way they've designed the levels. Partly through the way they've named the levels. So they have... Yeah, this one in particular is a really weird one to have to tutorialize. So we have, like, corpses scattered around and things like that, hinting, I guess, that maybe we should also become a corpse. But because that goes such at odds with what we have been, generally what we expect from games, and the fact that in this game in particular we are tracked based on how many times we die.
Yeah, you think you shouldn't die.
Yeah.
And in this case, that's actually the solution. and it kind of goes against what you expect. Yeah.
But other than that, like the general sort of platformery mechanics, a lot of them are like they're introduced sort of one at a time. The player is given a chance to experiment with them. If we die on something, we leave a corpse, which is kind of a nice little signifier of, hey, yeah, you died.
And I suppose you can even say how the level itself starts off easy, and then, there's like 3 parts of the level.
Yeah.
And it kind of gradually becomes harder in there.
But the problem...
Which, is like the tutorial starts kind of easy and then...
Yeah, like the main problem is that it goes back to what we were saying already. You have to relearn the same mechanic several times. Like, how do I open this gate? It's not like a case of, the first time we see it, we learn that there's a key for it, and then from then on we're always looking for the key because that's what we've been taught, and the key might be in different places or increasingly surrounded by more and more deadly traps and things like that. But no, it's just one time you have to kill yourself, one time you have to look away from the gate. They're almost undermining the lessons they've already taught, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah. So let's see.
So yeah, we've got... So a satisfactory would be gradual explanation of gameplay and controls somewhat aligned with play.
Yeah, that's the somewhat aligned with play bit. Is I think what we're talking about, how parts of the game it goes at odds with what you expect.
Yeah, and that's like because parts of it are actually done through the level design, which by itself is something that falls under the excellent category. But I think it's
exactly, yeah.
Because of some of like the issues that we've talked about, it's unfortunately the rest of it isn't quite there. So there are elements of it that are excellent, but overall I think it's closer to maybe between a satisfactory and a good, maybe even a satisfactory, I think.
Gradual explanation of gameplay was somewhat aligned with play. And fully aligned with play, I see, yeah.
And so I think, the individual mechanics that they are trying to teach are... They're still not fully aligned with play, like the kamikaze thing. It's a thing that we're explicitly expected not to do in most games, and this game as well, to get the best reward, is die. So trying to teach us to die is very difficult to do in the context of that. So I think the rest of the elements, like coins and keys and other things, are mostly aligned with play. So I would say perhaps between a satisfactory and a good, I think.
Yeah, that sounds fine. And that leads us to the core dynamic. What do you think the core dynamic is?
Ooh, so I have a feeling... Well, there are a couple that it could be, and I'm curious to see what they say. I have a feeling which one it is. What do they say in the game notes we asked them to hand in alongside this game?
So they say the core dynamic for the game is race to the end. And this is identified with the help of a time limit in each of the levels that must be beaten in order to progress to the next level. And that the other collectible items within the levels are either optional or part of the level's challenge, so as not to distract from the race to the end nature of the game. That's what they say.
Okay, so that is actually the one that I was leaning towards. You could obviously make arguments that a lot of it's about spatial reasoning because it's about getting through the level, but because the timer is like the primary sort of success or fail metric, I think that sort of puts it towards race to the end. Like it's not necessarily about sitting here and making sure we get all the coins. It's about getting as many of the coins as quickly as we can and still making it to the end.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think they're right in their reasoning behind that. So while there are still elements of spatial reasoning or elements of collection, they are all in service of get to the end as fast as possible. And that ties back into the sort of risk versus reward that we talked about earlier. So that there are the coins, but can you still get them fast enough?
Yeah, exactly. So a good would be a clear core dynamic that is supported by the primary mechanics. and I think it's...
I think it's certainly at least a good. So for an excellent, it would need to be supported by an integrated set of mechanics. And this goes back to what we've already said about the mechanics, is because the mechanics seem a little bit inconsistent, and it sort of almost changes the rules. Oh, I wonder if that's intentional, that I can block the saw blade with my corpse. Yeah, it might be actually, because, well, we don't know if it was intentional, but it certainly works well. I've lost my train of thought already. Because the mechanics...
the mechanics are not necessarily integrated well and change sometimes. It doesn't get to the excellent level.
Okay,
it feels like.
But overall, I think we can say that it is at a good level, which brings us on to feedback. So one of the things during the development of the game was during the lab sessions, students could get feedback on their game, and then we asked them to interpret and integrate that feedback into the game itself. So what feedback did they talk about in their game report?
So the feedback they were giving was we should avoid making the levels too collectibles focus. We should implement a time limit, which we haven't included yet, and make that the focus of the game. We should include a tutorial level and have a Half-Life 2 style teaching method, where you show the player what to do, not telling them what to do. And how they responded to the feedback was by having the levels include a countdown timer, which, the red one. The collectibles are optional unless they are part of the challenge. We included a tutorial level that the player must do to progress the actual game levels, and the additions of new elements happen over multiple levels, so as not to make the learning curve of the game too steep. And we also implemented hints for each level in the form of their name, which hints at the solution for the level's challenge, as well as in-game help in the form of dead bodies in areas that will kill the player. Interesting, yeah. So that's everything. And they've definitely implemented the things they were told.
Yep. So some of those were just implemented directly. Like, if you want to make it a race to the end, make sure you've got something on a timer. I guess, sure, that makes absolute sense, and I think that's definitely had a positive impact. Some of the elements. What were we saying? Like the collectibles as well. We already sort of talked about in terms of core dynamic. They definitely sort of help it feel like a race to the end rather than a collection game. I don't know why I'm going. I'm trying to get to the end of the level because there's something I want to check for the rest of it. So, for example, like there are corpses scattered over the difficult bits here, but are they there at the first time we see a spike pit? Because I don't think they are. No. I think they were there, or at least in that level specifically, but not in the previous levels. Let's have a look. Because that's the thing. They sort of say, we do this sort of in service of like the invisible sort of style tutorial, but in this level, so all of these dangerous things. I mean, we can kind of assume that spikes are dangerous, but the corpses are not introduced until much later.
Yeah, I think they're more like a hint for the solution of the level.
Oh, I see. So hinting that you should die.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, overall, I think we already spoke about this in the sort of tutorial side of things. The actual sort of collectibles and things are nicely introduced. So the first ones are introduced in relatively safe, easy to get places. The second, fewer, slightly more out of your way. So yeah, overall I think that's been a positive change as well.
Yeah. So let's see. A good would be feedback has been addressed and the changes have been successful.
Yeah, and I think that's where we are. I think they could have gone a little bit further in interpreting exactly sort of the feedback they were given, particularly along the lines of the tutorial which we sort of already spoke about in that bit of the marketing.
Yeah.
But overall, like the changes that they've made have had a successful and positive impact. They maybe could have gone a bit further with some of them, but otherwise, yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah. And I think that is everything from the mark sheet.
Excellent, in which case let's move on to the next game. Okay, and this is SystemLog. Immediately into the game, we are sort of somewhat hit around the face with a wall of text. Let's see. Welcome to your new job at Log4U Enterprises LLC. Here we create the foremost in wood-based products. You'll be working on factory design, helping us set up various machines to make our products. To get you started, we have an example floor. To toggle making it run or stop, press Control Space. Control Space is an interesting control scheme. Okay, so yeah, first off the bat, I think I sort of mentioned this in one of the Lab Y Expo sessions as well. I would maybe break up some of this text into, sort of like, just have the first line and then the next button so I can sort of read it and click through, because my initial instinct for some reason is to just go, big wall of text, hit dismiss. Which could be a problem. Luckily, there's a way of bringing that back if I need it, which is quite good. It is really useful to be able to refer to that. And I like that this next level button has appeared as well, so just in case it looks like we're really, really struggling with a level, we can just jump straight on. So, do you remember what the control was to start the factory?
Yeah, Control Space.
Control Space, yes it was. So let's do that. So we can see we've got boxes coming out and boxes going in. Okay, nice little ka-ching as we complete the level, that's good. So we can either stay here, I don't think we need to. Let's continue to the next one. Okay, again, somewhat big wall of text. Jim has decided to call his lunch break early, so we've got to finish this machine for him. In the top left, we've got the selector. Using the mouse wheel, choose what item you'd like to place. Once you've decided, left-click on any blue tile to place it. You've got a tight budget, make sure you don't run out of items. So, there we go. If I scroll, I can put down a conveyor, and I've got one conveyor, and that can go there. And I assume this... I don't know what this does actually. Maybe we'll find out later. So I don't think I can click this button to start, which would maybe be nice as well. But Control Space it is. So 5 boxes go out, 5 boxes go in. Nice little fanfare as well. That's pretty good. Gracious, what a mess. Jim will be given some stern words about the damn you, Jim. To clear up the machines, use right-click. You can drag over machines if you don't like clicking. You can't remove machines on red tiles because of Stan the Wizard. Okay, sure. I have definitely seen code like that. So we can just drag right click and remove all of these, and then 1, 2, 3, and that should be fine.
Yeah, that seems simple enough.
Okay, so despite ragging on it a little bit for a big wall of text, the actual levels are pretty good, like in teaching what you need to do. Something we can use Q&E to rotate, so again, sort of introducing different mechanics as we need them. Conveyors will also auto-rotate while dragging. And management thinks you're doing so well, we've got unlimited conveyors, that's kind of handy. So I can just like that. So
I think it's supposed to be opposite. Oh wait, yeah, that's the right one, but...
Oh, that one's the wrong way around, that's why. So if I remove that one, and then will that work? Okay, so this one is nicely joined, this one is not, but that's okay. We make many things here at Log4U Incorporated. This means you'll often have to juggle more than one thing. To see what a producer produces and a consumer consumes, left-click them with the spanner. The item they want, is that not the item they produce or consume then? Spanner can be also used on many things to show the item that... So try out the spanner, okay.
Chairs.
Okay.
Oh. Okay.
I'm not sure what all of this is.
What did the note say?
Open the note.
Consumer consumes. Left click with the spanner.
Okay. So, I mean, let's put down some conveyor belts and see what happens. So I suspect that's all we need to do. Because this one's going to produce... Oh, okay. So it would be nice if these things showed up on the conveyor rather than having to sort of click through for it.
Yeah.
Because that's like one of the nice things about these kinds of factory games, like things like, you know, Factorio and Satisfactory and things like that, is you can easily see at a glance what's on a belt.
Yeah, exactly.
You can see if you can finish off some of these factories on your own. So, because, yeah, now we have to click on this and then remember which one is which. So this one wants whatever that is. So, okay, so chair, chair, table, table, stick, stick. So chair, chair, no, chair, chair.
Leftmost, yeah.
Okie dokie. So, but this has a, okay, so it's going to have to go something like this, isn't it? No, because then that's stuck there.
Maybe from the most, the leftmost, or around the walls, so it doesn't
Oh, you mean like go this
get
way?
in the way. Yeah.
I've still got unlimited conveyors, so I can make as much of a mess as I want. And then, oh wait, no, hang on, that needs to be there though. So let's go back to this then. So that's the one.
So that's
This one produces chairs. Okay, that was the one I wanted. You're right. See, this I already forgot. I was like, is this producing chairs or is it
yeah,
producing something
because
else? It feels like
that's the
you
thing.
could definitely put like this, you know, this little sprite here and along the conveyor belt. So I don't know if that was just, you know, an oversight or didn't have enough time for it, or a deliberate design decision to make the puzzle a little bit more tricky. But it's an odd choice. This one has to go there. This one can just go straight down like that. Okay.
I see, yeah.
There we go. Let's...
Yeah, and that should be fine.
Okay.
You should also try later what happens if you put in the wrong product in one of the...
Yeah, you're right. So the other thing is, I don't know why we'd ever want to stay on the level, because
Yeah,
again,
if you
satisfaction
want
things
to
like that, we can
make
see
it better.
we can see the thing continually working. But if I stop and reset it. Okay, yeah. Well, I was like, but we've already run out of things. What's the point of staying? So I guess, yeah, if we wanted to, we could go back and can I
refactor it.
So again, I don't know if this is like debug information that was left over, or if it's just, you know, sort of flavor and like, oh, this is what the machine says kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Because they're all so, yeah, a little bit odd. So we can go to the next level.
And those are non-removable.
Oh, the non-removable, right? I was like, well, I can just delete all of these, and so I guess we're in like the game proper now because we've been given a bunch of existing problems to fix.
Which I guess can be like a segue to me and my criteria, and we can start talking about that.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, let's kick off with overall quality.
Yeah, and the presentation. So how is the information design? I think the main thing is the thing we were talking about, how it's always the same boxes, even though the product itself is different.
So I think this is a case of all the key information is there, but it is not as clear as it could be.
Yes, yeah.
So chair, 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 chair.
Huh,
Okay, so they all need chairs.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And you have unlimited.
Unlimited.
Yeah. Okay.
So that would put them straight at a good, right?
Yeah. All key information is shown. Is that? Okay.
Okay, I was worried that the boxes were stuck, but no, they're waiting patiently, which is good. So yeah, so that puts them basically straight at a good. In terms of graphics,
Wait. So just to be sure, so what else can we say about the key information? There's the amount of
so I guess we've got
conveyors you have left.
a currently selected component, the actual design of the different components themselves and what they're going to do. So actually, you know, the information design of this thing is actually really nicely put together. It's very clear that stuff goes in here, comes out here.
Yeah.
The wrench is not great, but the actual design of the factory floor and the things is pretty good. And actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm thinking maybe between a good and an excellent at least. Then in that case.
Yeah. Okay. What about the graphics?
Again, like relatively similar thoughts on it. Like overall, they're consistent. It's sort of mostly obvious what's happening. There are a couple of weirdnesses with some of the conveyors. They don't always seem to join up, and I don't know whether that's because I'm placing them down wrong or if they're just aren't always textures for them. Use control. I did not know I could use Control A, Control D, and Control W to step the factory model. Why Control A controlled? Why control? Some of these we're going to have a chat about some of these controls.
Oh, it's infinite now.
So let's just see what happens if I hit play. So yeah, overall the graphics are.
It cannot.
So if I Control A, Control D, what was Oh, is it all? Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure about these controls either. It's graphics.
Yeah. So we have consistent and effective graphics, at least, I think.
Yeah, I think they're close to being appealing. I think let's go back to our old friend the wrench. Like these graphics maybe could be improved a little bit. I'm curious as to why they are sort of done in this style. I guess it's to match sort of the overall aesthetic of the grids and things like this. But you could almost have just gotten a sprite of a chair and just said, because that would be a bit clearer what each thing is.
Yeah.
So,
so it feels like between a good and an excellent maybe.
Yeah. So again, we're not expecting people to be able to draw wonderful chairs and things like that, but if you can just get your hands on a sprite that you have permission to use, like a sprite of a chair or a table or something else might be sort of a bit clearer here. Okay, yeah, so I think between the good and excellent for that. Audio-wise, I think they're doing pretty good. They've got some nice background music. They've got a lovely ka-ching every time one of these machines finishes. A lovely fanfare every time we complete the level. Could be maybe some whirring of conveyors when we actually turn the factory on, but there's like some noise when we place stuff and remove it as well, so a little bit of extra feedback in that way. Can I? So what if I just do something like this? Is this gonna work?
Oh wow, it feels like it should. Because it's like an infinite loop. I see.
Yeah, I don't think the loop is going to help, but it will actually help a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, lovely little fanfare. So I think for audio, they're certainly at complementary and appealing effects and music. I think again to sort of bump it up into the prizeworthy, they could have like maybe some different effects for each of the components, so we get a real sense of when the factory is running versus when we're designing it. But overall, yeah, I think the audio is probably quite excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to trust you on that one. I don't have access to it.
Employee announcement. Some employees ask us, when I walk outside, why does the world look like a 90s demo scene effect? These are the kind of employees that get fired. That's kind of cute. Like, again, not really necessary for the tutorial, but it's nice to have these little bits of sort of like flavor and stuff spread throughout. It's almost getting a sort of like, what's the word? Almost a bit of a Portal vibe there. So now I've got to get my wrench and I've got to check chair. Yes, chair. Good. Rule all chairs here. So that.
And
now, is that going to work, or is it going to go
I
left?
think it always goes to the left first, which means that it's the opposite.
Which means this is a puzzle.
I think, yeah. And what happens if you... you just...
So you just have to restart it. Okay.
Yeah, so in the meantime, what about the mechanics of the game? There's quite a few, it feels like.
Yeah, so we've got producers and consumers, we've got targets to hit, we've got different objects that they each produce, we've got them pathing around on the conveyor belts, we've got splitters. I don't know if there's going to be any other components.
Yeah.
But overall, feels like a pretty wide set of mechanics.
And there is like levels with already placed in.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Things you cannot remove, so it's quite a few things actually. And are we at the excellent level? A wide set of complementary mechanics.
You know what? Yeah, I think we probably are. Just trying to think how I solve this level, and I'm already stuck. It is generally a good sign if I sort of stop talking because I'm thinking about a puzzle you've designed. But yeah, overall, I think we can say excellent for mechanics. In terms of controls, it's an interesting control scheme. I don't know why it's control space. I have a feeling there was a reason for that, and it was something that maybe got dropped midway through development. There's no reason it couldn't just be space or WASD for the stepping through. Or even just, clicking this button.
Yeah.
Like, it works, but it's not what I would call an intuitive set of controls. Although, the tutorial at least explains it, so I'm not sort of fumbling for what I should be doing. But yeah, it's just a bit of an odd keybind to choose.
I guess that is kind of, a thing that you need to think about when making the game. Because you can choose any key pretty much, but there's like certain things people expect. And in this case, it kind of makes it harder just, I guess, at the beginning for a person to get used to it.
Not to mention, what's the word I'm looking for? You can think about sort of some of your other controls. If I'm doing all of my designing and placing with just clicking, you might as well make this a clickable as well, because then I can click rather than having to sort of worry about keyboards at all.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I think that would work if it goes around like that.
So yeah, where do we think it sits on the mark scheme in that case?
So the controls, from what I gather, are usable, and they are smooth once you get used to them.
The stepping is a little bit weird. I don't know why I'd want to do that. I guess so I can sort of have more control over understanding exactly the mechanics and things. I would say it's solidly at a good, maybe reaching up towards an excellent.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, most of the controls are relatively intuitive. Placing stuff, rotating it, removing it is all fine.
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
Some weird choices of keybind that I'm sure there's a reason for. But yeah, something that maybe could have been polished a little bit. So overall, I'm going to say between a good and excellent, I think, for that.
Yeah. And I haven't seen any bugs. Except the graphical thing with the conveyor belts connecting, but that's...
Yeah, I'm not even sure that's necessarily a bug.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd almost say between a good and an excellent or an excellent, because it's not.
Yeah, it's quite complex, the game, or it feels complex.
Yeah, there's definitely like enough going on, and sort of managing how these things connect up is not going to be trivial. I would say maybe even an excellent again.
Yeah, there are no obvious bugs.
I know we've already talked about it, but I am just going to say I'm still annoyed at this information design because I'm definitely going to forget what does what. Okay, so that does that, that does that. That is that one and that. Okay.
There is 3 splitters. Yeah, it starts ramping up quite nicely.
Cool. So I think that gives us an excellent there, and then we do move on to talking about the level design as a whole. Yeah,
and the goals, risks, and rewards specifically.
So the goals are very clear. Get box to place box needs to go. Risk and reward, there isn't a huge amount. There is, I guess, the inherent, can I do this with fewer pieces? But we're never scored on that. And I think that would make it sort of, much you have a. So we have some limit onto what we can place, but for example, for these things, because we can place as many as we want, you could do something where you give people a little bit actually extra than they need, and then reward them for using less.
Yeah. That's absolutely. That would really add to the risks and rewards. And I suppose make it easier for new players and make it a challenge for better players who want to try to minimize the usage of parts. And that would really have been a good way to do it.
So to me it sounds like they have a clear goal but a limited set of risk and rewards, which sort of averages out to basically a satisfactory, I think.
Yeah.
That is very satisfying watching that.
Is it going to... Yeah. I wonder how many levels they have, because that's been quite a few.
It's the nice thing about these kinds of puzzle games, and it's once you have like a sort of set of mechanics, all you have to do is just keep combining them in slightly different ways, and you can actually have quite a lot of really good levels. And that really is going to tie into the next part that we talk about, actually, which is the pacing. So we have, the levels are getting, steadily more complex. They're requiring good use of all the mechanics and components we've learned so far. There's a good sense of pacing in that, we're not being immediately overwhelmed by any of this complexity. We get to sort of sit and sort of puzzle it out. We get the actual tension of trying to puzzle that out, and then we get the sort of somewhat satisfying conclusion to each level where we get to see everything working really nicely.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of pacing, this is actually up at the excellent level again.
Yeah, it feels well balanced.
Although, having just said that, I've then read this and they've said, here's 3 new parts all at once.
Run through them.
The cutter splits one item into 2 parts, sending them in opposite ways. The combiner does the exact opposite. Okay, so that's maybe fine because we've got 2 things that are basically...
opposites of each other.
And they're all done in... And again, we're sort of back to this very tutorially level of just put the one piece in each of these things to figure out how it works, and then we'll get you to use it through. So actually, despite being a little bit worried, I think they're actually... Okay, so this is why they have that grid-based thing, and now suddenly that makes a lot more sense. Okay, so you couldn't have just gotten away with just adding a sprite there, so that's fine. I still think, going back to what we said, it maybe could have been a little bit clearer. But overall, so okay.
Yeah, so the first one is the...
And then this one's going to make it a thing that rotates. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that combines them. It looks like, and that's definitely a splitter. Which I suppose is nice design if we can tell. I mean, yeah, the only thing is that the boxes themselves don't really show.
Yeah, and this goes back to the thing that we've said a couple of times now. It'd be really nice if we could see that actually happening on the conveyor belt. It would make solving the puzzles a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, pacing, excellent. How about the tutorial? I think that's also quite... It ties in with the pacing and how, slowly introducing mechanics and...
Yeah, and
so on.
Like a lot of it is done through sort of gameplay and level design as well. So we had those levels that are just put the one component in each of these free spots and see what happens. And again, that would be improved if we could actually see what was happening as it was happening. But then you get levels that are, here is a half-completed machine, just finish it off. And then you get levels that are, here are all of the components, put them together in a way to do the thing. So I think it's actually a really, really good tutorial, despite ragging on it right at the start about the amount of text.
Yeah, the amount of text. Which, it could have been done a bit differently, but at the same time, it worked, I suppose.
Yeah.
So let's see. An excellent would be gradual explanation of gameplay and controls fully aligned with play, and sometimes communicated through level design. Which it feels there. Let's see. Because the sometimes communicated through level design is the thing that
No, that's not going to work. Oh, that's interesting. It just keeps rotating the thing because it's stuck in there. Sorry, again, distracted by puzzles. Where are we?
So on the tutorial bit, and I was thinking how it's, I think, at the excellent level, it feels like.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's... gradual exploration of gameplay, the controls are fully aligned with play, and it's often communicated through the level design.
Yeah.
Obviously, to do it even better, there could have been ways, like you say, to sort of reduce some of the text that they gave, or at least the way they distributed that text, and do even more of it through level design. But I think this is definitely still hitting the excellent there.
Yeah.
Cool, which takes us to core dynamic.
And I think it's pretty clear it's spatial reasoning, and that's what they said as well.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
The reason for this is due to the main challenges and enjoyment from the game coming from fighting with the limited space given to you in the playable game grid. Some puzzles require you to think about how to use your space effectively, or consider how to use your tools to avoid walling off an area you need to access. And in some later levels, it's very easy to wall yourself off or run out from. And I think that they certainly have that core dynamic really clearly. And they've communicated that as well.
Yes, sorry, again, I'm distracted by puzzles. So I think this hits probably the excellent. It's a clear core dynamic. It's supported by all of the different mechanics they've got going. It is all about not just arranging stuff within the space, but arranging the sort of shapes as well. So splitting them, arranging them, putting them back together.
Yeah.
That works really, really, really well. I'd almost be tempted to say it's reaching towards the praiseworthy. It's not quite there because it doesn't have, the additional supporting dynamics, and that goes partly back to what we said about the risk versus reward. There's no There's nothing sort of really motivating that sort of like compacting everything as much as you want. So what's another game that does that sort of element really well? Opus Magnus, the sort of Zachtronics game where you're trying to build a machine that does something, but you can either do it in a really compact way using as few components, you can do it as in as few time cycles as you want, so it draws together some interesting other dynamics, but all of them in service to that sort of like spatial reasoning component.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall I think I would almost say between an excellent and a praiseworthy.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it feels like if they did a few more things, it would have been absolutely at that level. That's a praiseworthy. And I guess that leads us to the feedback. And okay, let's see. They've been given two primary pieces of feedback. The first one was that we needed to consider how to tutorialize our design. With this, we changed from having all of our devices available at the start to starting with only conveyors and slowly introducing them with a simple puzzle. After introducing a puzzle, the next level or two would still be intuitive and show some extra nuisance to the mechanics to the device, and then ramping up towards the end. Which, yeah, they've done.
Yeah, I agree. So where would you put that?
Let me actually read the second one. I want to see. So the second one was the code was far too complicated. As such, we have removed the ability for manual editing of code, having it instead be modifiers for the machines. Oh. As such, it was much easier to implement it, and it is less intense to the user. At the moment, an info box describes what several code blocks do, and more details can be seen if desired. The code blocks are also introduced incredibly late. Maybe we haven't even gotten to that.
Code blocks? Interesting.
Yeah, maybe you want to skip a few levels when it shows the next level thing, because I didn't expect it to be...
Is that what these things are going to be then?
It feels like it, yeah. Code blocks, wow.
Slightly annoyingly, I don't seem to have a skip level option.
It always shows like a bit after you...
Is it the first time I mess up, maybe?
I think it just shows after a set amount of time.
Okay.
Which...
Oh, there we go.
There it is.
Here is code. When a machine simply does not make the right thing, code can be inserted to make it do... Okay. Bloody hell, that's ambitious. Here is a pesky separator. Select some code with the mouse wheel, then place it with left click and remove it. What? Excuse me? What? Select some code with the mouse wheel, then place it with left click and remove it. Here is a pesky separator. So here's the thing. On the one hand, they have a wider set of mechanics than we thought. On the other, I'm not sure
what to do.
Yeah, it feels like this is certainly an ambitious mechanic to add. It adds like another dimension of complexity to what they're trying to do, and I don't think this bit at least is particularly tutorialized well. Yeah,
try. Try placing that.
Select a bit of code with... Oh, hang on, do I have to select the... No.
Maybe place that thing somewhere.
Okay, we place that there. So that's code, is it?
I think so.
Okay, which just blocks
So
interesting. Okay, so
can you change or drag?
I don't seem to be able to. So if I Let's reopen now. Remove it with right click. That's not doing it. Oh, there we go. Oop, now remove the splitter as well. So we don't. So what this is saying is we always want the splitter to go this way. I don't know how to.
Can you drag and drop those?
No. I think this.
After you.
So I think the little pink thing is just always there. I don't necessarily know if that's what's being selected.
Ah.
Okay, so we're getting bogged down right at the end here. This is interesting. So yeah, it's kind of an extra mechanic that we weren't aware of. I think like up until this point, the tutorial's been really, really good. This has suddenly added a dimension of complexity that I don't know is helping their game. It feels like this is actually just an extra component that does a thing, but it's not really signposted what that thing is.
Try the next level.
You can use cranes to move code in and out. Bloody hell, alright. By default, they will always put code into machines, but they can also accept code themselves to change this. So this is actually a lot more extensive than we first thought. Okay. Hold Alt to see tooltips of anything on the left, hovering.
Oh, tooltips of the code.
What?
Oh.
Okay then.
That might have been better shown in the previous tutorial, but wow.
Wow, okay, they have gone really in depth into this. Okay, I don't think that necessarily changes my opinions of anything that we've said so far. I think the positives these new things have added are maybe sort of cancelled out by some of the negatives.
Yeah.
So for example, going back to like the mechanics, if we were going to consider this, it certainly creates a wider set of mechanics. Or rather, it certainly adds complexity to their set of mechanics. So I would always say they have a wide set of complex mechanics at this point. However, I don't think this is complementary to their other mechanics that they were trying to do. So I will tell you what. What else have we got? Novel. And again, like the things with the controls. This is, again, very unintuitive. Even if it does sort of...
Yeah, it is.
So there are a couple of things. Actually, look. So now that we know this is here as well, I would say mechanics I would bump up a notch because they are verging towards that complexity. The same for the bugs. They're getting towards like actually very high complexity. So I would say both of those are actually probably between excellent and praiseworthy now.
Yeah.
What did we say for controls? I've already forgotten.
Controls was between good and excellent.
I'd almost be tempted to bring... No, that can stay where it is. And then what have we got? The goals, rest and reward, the tension... Oh dear. I think the rest of it is probably okay to stay where it is. Again, because at least up until this point, like the tutorial and the pacing was like very good and very well balanced. I think it has gone like a little bit off the rails here, but given that we were asking for such a small game prototype and they've already got such an extensive set of levels, even I think like these later ones maybe sort of break some of the pattern that they had before. Even if we just consider the first bit, like it fits those categories quite well. Okay, so
yeah, exactly.
And yeah, so thinking about the dynamic, I don't think this adds... So it's definitely another dynamic, but I don't think it helps the spatial reasoning side of things. It just adds a bunch of extra complexity that isn't that helpful. This is the last level. Have fun. It's a bit visual. Okay, so at least we've definitely gotten to the very last level here. Okay. Right, so let's listen to their feedback again, and then we'll wrap this one up.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. The two pieces of feedback. To consider more how to tutorialize the level design, and they, started introducing things one at a time, or mostly one at a time, with some levels in between. And the second one is about the code, which was far too complicated back then. So they removed the ability for manual editing of the code and instead be modifiers.
Okay.
So that's the two.
So first bit, yeah, actually overall the pacing and tutorial design is something we've complimented already. I think it's really nicely done. They introduce a concept in a simple machine, then they give you a more complex machine to figure out, and then they give you a more open-ended thing to construct your own machine. That's really, really nicely done. In terms of the code, goodness, if this is the simple version, I would be terrified to see the more complex version, particularly if they were having... So I think... If they had manually editing code in their spatial reasoning puzzle game, that would definitely have broken their core dynamic, I think. Simplifying this so it's just a component that you're adding to an existing component kind of saves it. I think it's still perhaps a bit overcomplicated for what they're trying to achieve, but that's definitely been a positive change. That bit of the feedback I think they could have maybe interpreted and addressed a little bit better, perhaps by simplifying some of it even further.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say that is probably between a good and an excellent, I think.
It feels about right.
Okay.
And I think that's all.
Cool, I think that is all for this game, so let's move on to the next one. Okay, and this is Dimension Shifter. So this one has a really, really nice title screen. I definitely dig the aesthetic they're going for. We've got credits, which is always nice to see. Like, showing where they've got their assets from is always a nice touch. We've even got an option screen, we can change the music a little bit. So that's really nicely polished. Let's jump straight into it. Oh, we've even got a level select screen. That's really, really good.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought when it said not finished, it meant they hadn't finished any of these levels. And I was like, no, I haven't finished them. Okay,
yeah.
Great. Okay, press escape to go to the main menu. Good. I have completed the level. So yeah, it's weird that the instructions on how to quit the level are slightly more prominent than the actual level. I also don't know what I am in this. Okay, I'm this square.
Yeah.
So we've got quite a few. That thing in hole. Okay, so that's just standard platformer box.
Yeah, and you cannot do anything else. So
There we go. There. Took 0 switches. We don't know what switches are yet, but I think we're about to find out.
yeah.
Okay, so I can't go there, but if I press E... Okay, so the levels don't entirely align.
Yeah.
So when
yeah.
things switch, they... Okay. So what happens if I was... Because there's a wall here, right? So... Okay, I just straight over to one.
Pushes, yeah.
Obviously, my first reaction is to try and break things.
Yeah.
That only took 12 switches. Okay, not the highest score. Ooh, we've got some red. Cool. Yep, that kills you as expected. We can't jump over it, but we can do this. Ooh, there's some little particle effects as well. So I was going to say, just like it's kind of nice just having like big bold color because it really contrasts with everything in the level. It makes it really obvious what's dangerous. But even like the little particle effects, make me think, oh, it's a lava pit or something. That's really, really nice. Oh, I'm gonna have to switch. I'm gonna have to switch in midair, aren't I?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not gonna like that.
And I think the same. Yeah.
Oh, that's. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
This is going to be one of those games that I'm going to struggle to talk about while playing.
It definitely takes some concentration.
That's really interesting. E is a very odd control to pick for that, because I'm having to jump and move right at the same time as switching. My finger does not naturally fall on the E key there. It feels like space to switch or something would have been much better, because then I can have my fingers on all the movement controls and the switch control very, very naturally. Oh.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, I remember there was something to do with that. Maybe space was used
space
later
is also
for something.
jump. Okay.
Ah,
So that
yeah,
still doesn't quite solve it, because it's the D key that I really need. So I have to move between D and E quite rapidly, but that's...
yeah.
Okay. So... I'm just trying to think about how to platform rather than talk about the game. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. I like that it only tells me how many switches it took and not how many times I died, because I think it would be quite a lot. Yeah, so we'll talk about this a little bit in the controls. I feel okay, so there's going to be some extra controls as well. I feel like the the switching really could have gone for space. I think I would prefer that, but otherwise they feel fine. But we'll dive into the mark scheme. In fact, let's dive into it right now. So we'll start with the overall sort of quality and size of things.
Yeah, so let's see. The quality, the presentation, and information design. So I think... Oh yeah, they mentioned how that jump there was one of the worst ones, and you probably need to switch. Yeah, that jump.
Yeah.
Because of
Because that little bit of overhang. There we go. So we've got a box and a switch. I know how to deal with this. I've played video games before.
yeah. And now you should be able to jump.
There we go. Okay, so that's it. So it's... Weirdly, for some reason I expect the two sort of dimensions to be like reflections of each other, but they are just two totally separate.
Yeah.
I mean, they have similarities, but they're not necessarily mapped together. So I'm guessing that's some sort of teleportal?
Yeah,
So we've got a green switch and a green thing. Again, nice use of colour there, sort of really bold colour to highlight. Here is something that is different to everything else, basically. We've got the switch. The switch could maybe be a little bit chunkier so we can really see it. But green switch, green platform, okay.
Yeah, and you don't have a lot of choice because of the lava. And
I've already forgotten what the rest of the level looked like.
there's
And then
and that teleports you
okay,
automatically.
so it teleports us and forces us to switch dimensions. Oh, hang on, I've got to press Q. It feels weird that I have to specifically press Q. There's no reason like I'd want to switch something back at the minute. Maybe later there will be.
Yeah, maybe later you'll see. I think there's definitely...
Okay.
Oh,
Sudden complexity. Let's take a quick look. This level's much nicer. I prefer this one. So we've got red there, we've got green there. Are we going to have to do a thing where we switch twice mid-fall to avoid that lava?
Maybe.
Well, it looks that way. Yeah, I think I already said this is going to be a game that I'm just going to sort of stop talking halfway through this video while I try and do platforming and puzzling at the same time. How far did we even get with it? We just started talking. We said let's look at the mark scheme and then immediately got distracted. Okay, so
information design.
no, that's fine. I was just talking about the colours of switches and stuff. That was all to do with information design.
Part of that. Yeah. So yeah, in that sense, pretty much all the key information is shown from what I can gather. I mean, you aren't shown how many switches you have done, throughout the level.
Yeah, although...
And only at the end, but that's...
Oh, that kind of switches. I thought you meant the...
the switches between the worlds. Oh, wow. Oh, you... Yeah, I don't think that was the planned way to do it, but...
Oh, really?
Yeah. And Dave did it another way, which wasn't planned. So... It's... Yeah, that works.
The thing is, I think I need that box to be able to pin this down, don't I?
You can run.
We've done it again. Information. So yeah, there's the colours of the different switches. There's the... So again, leaping ahead a little bit, another sort of control minor annoyance. If all of the controls of the gameplay are keyboard-based, don't make me reach over to the mouse to complete a level.
Yeah.
Particularly if I'm going to be dying a lot, like bind that to space as well or something.
Yeah, so it feels like all key information is shown throughout the level.
That's interesting, by the way.
Information is shown clearly. Yeah, that's
yeah, so all key information is shown. Is it shown clearly? I mean, yeah, we've already talked about how like nice bold colours shown. Like I know immediately that button does something to this platform. The green one does something to this platform. The red is bad. The teleporters are, I guess, less obvious that they are teleporters, but it's at least obvious that this one links to this one. This one links to this one.
Yeah.
Boxes wasn't super obvious from the first level, but because of the way they're introduced, it's now very clear that whenever I see this, it's a thing that I can push. So yeah, overall I would say all key information is shown clearly. Not necessarily any, sort of like novelty to the way they're doing it, and like you say, there are a couple of things that maybe it would be nice to show, like maybe a counter of how many times I'd switched, and I suspect we'll talk about that a little bit in terms of risk versus reward in a bit. But otherwise, yeah, I think this is easily an excellent.
Yep, and that leads us to the graphics, which are simple but effective, I think.
Absolutely. So one of the things we always try and hammer home when we're talking about the graphics is that we're not expecting like wonderful like 2D or 3D sort of like artwork. We're not judging people's artistic ability, and it is always really, really possible to do a lot with very, very simple graphics. And I think that's exactly what they've done for exactly the same reason we've talked about the information design being good. Like the colours are very bold, very stylistic. It's always very clear what's what. And it makes for like a really nice overall aesthetic. So I think I would say certainly consistent, effective, and appealing graphics, and possibly nudging up towards prizeworthy. That's sort of like they've picked a clear aesthetic. They've got sort of like a theme going. I think they're verging towards that.
Yeah, the thematically resonant one. I suppose how you switch between black and white worlds. And yeah, it kind of fits nicely, or it feels like it fits well. So yeah, I think between excellent and praiseworthy. How is the sound?
Ooh, sorry, I've just noticed something that is not great in terms of information design. We have a red button and a red switch and a red platform. Everything else red in the game tries to kill us. So I was like, is this going to kill me? No, this is a platform.
I see.
Oh, is that enough to lower the overall mark for information design? What did we put? Did we put them on?
Between excellent and praiseworthy.
I am going to say, I think this brings it down to just excellent. Like, overall, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge deal, but because they're already bumping up to like the higher end of the mark scheme, having just said it's really nice that the red things are so clear and bold and obvious that they're deadly to you, then making me jump on a red platform is unfortunately I think just knocks it down a little bit from there. However, the rest of the graphics, I think probably do reach up there. Oh, died.
Yeah, and are there any sound effects, music?
Yes, so we've got some lovely background music, again, sort of like very sort of light, airy, sort of platformery style music. We've got a lovely sizzle every time I fall into the lava, which happens a lot. And we've got a lovely sort of switchy noise every time we switch between dimensions. We've got some clicks when we throw switches. Yeah, it's...
So would you say complementary and appealing effects in music?
I would, yes.
Let's see. And because that would put it at the excellent level. Are they sophisticated?
I don't think they're sort of reaching up to that level of the...
Yeah.
I think, so again, there's sort of like interesting things that they could do to sort of like reach that state of the mark scheme. Things like, you know, sort of slightly more dynamic sounds, things like things that sort of depend more on the player's actions, sort of like incorporating elements of the soundtrack into like the sort of overall aesthetic and design of things. But overall, I think it's still solidly in the excellent.
Yeah. So that leads us to mechanics.
Okay, so what have we got mechanics-wise? We've obviously got standard sort of platforming controls and movement. We have switches that, these kinds of switches that do things. We've got switching dimensions, which is the main mechanic that they've got going on. We've got teleporters. We've obviously got the end of the level sort of goal, where we are sort of tracking the number of times we do that. We've got boxes that can be pushed and put on buttons. Overall, a pretty wide set of mechanics that work together quite well.
So let's say the excellent would be a wide set of complementary mechanics. And do you think it's there?
I think that's exactly where it is, yeah.
Try jumping above the green and switching immediately, maybe. And that should let you go up and then...
Oh, wait.
Yeah. So, what about the controls actually? How do they feel?
They feel quite good, yeah. Like the overall sort of jumping and moving controls are pretty good. I don't like that it's E to switch. Just because often I have to be moving right and switch at the same time, which is a bit sort of like unnatural in terms of where I put my hand. The fact that again, I got distracted with puzzles. It's a little... I don't know which this would come under it, whether it's sort of mechanics or controls or the overall level design. It's a little bit weird having to remember the state of two different levels simultaneously, so when I switch between them, it's not like one is a mirror of the other and I have to use stuff I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of the controls themselves, I would say reasonable set of smooth and usable controls. Again, I think there are things they could do to make them slightly more intuitive.
Yeah,
and a couple of like extra sort of bits of polish to really bump it up. But overall, mostly pretty good.
And any noticeable bugs?
I haven't noticed any of that, and it's certainly a reasonably complex game, so that would put it. At an excellent.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, so that leads us to the ghost risks and rewards bit. You got on top of the... So that's the...
Goals, risks, and rewards. So again, very clear goal: get to end.
Risks.
So it's not sort of really explicitly stated anywhere except for the end of the level. Oh, for
you were almost there.
I felt like I was almost there.
So yeah, risks in...
How did any of that help me though? That's the question.
I think the intended solution might be if you push in the box through the teleporter, the one on the top left.
Okay.
So it goes onto the orange bit, so you can then push it onto the right, so you can climb on top of it to get to the end of the level. Something like that.
Hang on, but the orange thing...
You can start moving it by switching, but they don't move while you're in the other...
Okay, I was going to say, am I going to have to do a timing puzzle for a thing that I can't see moving?
Yeah, in this case I don't think so. You can see how if you change dimensions, it doesn't move while you're in the other one.
Right, and is that going to give me enough space to land on it, or am I going to have to sort of...
Yeah, probably something like that, and maybe switch it so it goes the other way.
Yeah.
And stop there, and that should be... Yeah, and that should be kind of the solution, hopefully. And what did we say about the goals, risks, and rewards? We have clear goals.
Yes, and although it's not super explicit within the levels, between the levels and on the menu screen, you're given the high score of... Your score is based on the number of times you switch. So if you're an experienced player, you'll try to do the minimum number of switches to get the best score. But as a novice player, you can do it as much as you need to experiment.
Exactly, yeah. Which does help with the goals, risks, and rewards. Do I risk switching one more time to remember how the level looked like, or something like that? So a good would be clear and coherent set of goals, risks, and rewards. Do you think we have it of that?
Yes, I think so. So it's tricky because again it sort of ties into like the mechanics of just switching between two different levels and having to remember them. I wouldn't go as far as saying necessarily they're well balanced, because it does feel a bit like you're punishing the player for trying to remember what the other level looked like rather than just switching more than they needed to solve the problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I definitely think they have a clear and coherent set. Yeah, it could be made clearer, because we're only really... it's only really sort of made clear between levels. So, like you say, going back to the information design, if it had a counter for a number of times we'd switched, and it was sort of pretty clear that was our overall score, that would really emphasize it. But otherwise, I still think that it is clear and coherent.
Yeah. It feels like that. And what about the pacing itself? So it's clearly, rising. It's clearly getting harder. But
Wait.
Oh. Tension rises over time in a coherent pattern. So, do you think the difficulty ramps up a bit too much, too quickly?
Yes and no. I think it does for me.
But because you're trying to mark and play and...
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely feels a bit better if you're just playing.
Yeah, there's certainly a nice mix between the difficulty of figuring out what I have to do, and then being able to realize that.
Yeah, you want to stop it in the middle, and now you just want to quickly switch.
I'm
Or,
hoping
yeah.
that's still enough space there, because if not, I'm in trouble. Yeah, so overall, I think the balance is quite good. Certainly, the first couple of levels are a lot more. I didn't switch the switch, did I?
Yeah.
Okay. Pacing,
yeah, so...
Tension clearly rises over time. Yes. Tension rises over time in the gear and pattern. Yes. Is it well balanced? Let's
yeah.
quickly and sneakily go and have a look at. So level 6 was the first one that I got stuck at. Level 8. Let's have a quick look. If I switch, so we're trapped there. We need a green switch, but we can't get a green switch, so we have to go over here. So we need to move that. So we want one of these boxes to go somewhere, probably this one.
Yeah, when I played it, I found a speedrunning tactic. So, which they said they didn't consider.
Hang on. Almost.
If you go to the leftmost bit in the other dimension and jump, and you can jump on the that one.
Okay. So yeah, so overall, I think the pacing of the first couple of levels is better. I think the final ones do ramp up quite quick, but then again, small game prototype, right? These levels are relatively compressed, and it's good to sort of show off that challenge and design that you're capable of, even if it does ramp up a little bit steep at the end, because it's the final level, if you like. So overall, I would say the pacing is like pretty balanced. So I would say it's probably excellent. For prizeworthy, there'd need to be a few more variations in the gameplay. Right now, they are doing an excellent job of building on the gameplay they've already got in different combinations, but it doesn't quite yet. It doesn't quite bring it up to the prizeworthy, but I think it's still solidly and excellent. Tutorial. Let's go back right to the beginning so that we can take a look at it. Yeah, it was a little bit odd that we had the press escape so prominently compared to the rest of the actual controls. But here we go, so we have to demonstrate that we can move before we can even continue the tutorial level. There's no way of avoiding learning about pushing this box into a hole. We know that we can use boxes to solve puzzles. There's nothing else for us to do except go into this. We've learned that it's the thing. Like, a lot of that, so the controls are communicated through text, but everything else about the boxes, the things like that, are communicated through the level design, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And again, we're told to press E, and then we sort of have to learn for ourselves
what
that means and how the mechanics of that work. And again, red, like traditionally in a lot of contexts used to mean danger. Obviously not all contexts, but because it's like a very easy thing to try and experiment with, and we get to restart very, very quickly, we actually get to sort of try that out, see what happens, and then we learn the thing that we used last time to accomplish that. So that bit done really, really nicely. Never mind. I would say gradual explanation of gameplay and controls fully aligned with play at least, which puts them solid.
Yeah, definitely there.
And sometimes communicated through level design. I think we're at an excellent.
Yeah.
There are some bits and pieces that I think could maybe be done better. So, like the first introduction of the teleporters, for example. But other than that, I think it's solidly an excellent. Possibly even halfway to prizeworthy.
Fully aligned with play and communicated through level design. Yeah. And sometimes communicated through level design. Yeah, that's the difference. Sometimes or...
Yeah, sometimes or always.
Inching towards always, but not sometimes. A bit more than sometimes.
Exactly.
So, yeah, maybe between.
Yeah, I think so.
Which leads us to the core dynamic, which I think is very clear as well. like a lot of spatial things, switching around. You have to think a lot about the space, so it's definitely spatial reasoning, and that's what they say. So they say dimension shifter has this core dynamic because the primary objective of the game is to solve how to reach the destination by utilizing key mechanics. There is no time restriction, so the player is free to spend as much time as they want to solve the puzzle. However, there is a bonus reward for the least amount of dimensional shifting. So yeah, I think that's a clear dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. So clear core dynamics supported by the primary mechanics will put them at good, and I think it's probably beyond that. It's an integrated set of mechanics. So excellent again. So again, they don't necessarily have the additional sort of like supporting sort of elements of it that would take it up to a prizeworthy, but I think we can easily say that's solidly and an excellent.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool, which takes us to the feedback side of things.
Yeah, so they
almost found a bug there, but now I managed to get the...
So they have two pieces of feedback, main ones. So changed core dynamic. Initially we planned for the core dynamic to be raised to the end. This would have been done with a time limit, awarding 1 to 3 stars based on the completion time. And this would have altered the playing style away from problem solving and instead rushing to complete it in the fastest amount of time, restarting if necessary. The feedback suggested that rushing and not putting much thought into planning would not be suitable for this style of game. In response to this, we changed the core dynamic to be spatial reasoning by not adding a time limit, but instead for each level it keeps track of how many shifts. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they were going with a race to the end dynamic based on this, because it feels like very, 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 very clearly spatial reasoning. So either they were very confused at the start, or they've made a lot of good changes based on that.
The feedback.
Yeah. So there's a couple of bits that feel like it is maybe going against the spatial reasoning a little bit. So for example, this bit.
The quick succession.
Yeah, exactly. It's more
agility.
But there is the idea that I have to understand the space well enough to preempt.
Yeah.
So it's still working for it. It's just, I guess, that didn't feel like there was a lot of thought to it. That was just pure panic. But yeah, in terms of the feedback itself.
There's another one, which is clearly distinguish the different dimensions. So the two dimensions were initially planned to have the same layout and color scheme, with the only key differences being the features, levers, buttons, doors, etc. The feedback suggested that it would be good if the player could easily differentiate between the two dimensions by having different color schemes. And we responded to this by having a black and white theme. Dimension 1 has white platforms with black background and vice versa, which gives a nice contrast between them. And they also made so that the dimensions have different layouts, which allow them to have more interesting and challenging puzzles.
Okay, that's really interesting. So on the one hand, I really like that they did the what was it saying? The color scheme, because that does make it really, really clear. It's really, really nice. It's really, really stylistic. I'm not sure how I feel about them deliberately changing the layouts, because I've already said that.
Yeah, it's a bit.
Like on the one, I can certainly see their argument for it. Like they made the decision because it means the puzzles can be slightly more complex. It feels again like it relies more on like player memory than their ability to reason over the spaces. But I think that's an interesting interpretation of the feedback and an interesting change that was made, and it certainly has had positive impacts. Even if it's not necessarily the choice I would have made, it certainly has given them the ability to create these really interesting puzzles. So I think, yeah, feedback's been interpreted and addressed. The changes have been successful.
which puts it at an excellent. And I think that's... Oh. I think that's mostly everything.
I feel like, yeah, so that is everything from this. I have a horrible feeling I'm actually going to keep playing this afterwards so that I can finally get this level. But yeah, we should wrap up for now. That is everything for this game, everything for this video. So we will see you again soon for another one. Until then, see you soon.
See you soon.